Hello and welcome everybody. Today I'm going to read some of the Gospel of the Flying Spaghetti Monster. People have been telling me that they like my voice, so with today's current events in mind, I thought I'd dig up this book and have a little read with you. Now, for those who do not know the Gospel of the Flying Spaghetti Monster, it is written by Bobby Henderson, and it first started out as a letter to his university when his university in the United States this was considering or decided to start the creationist theories next to the evolution theories as well. The creationist theory, of course, the theory that God created Earth and everything else in 7 days. In response to that, he wrote a letter about the Gospel of the Flying Spaghetti Monster and basically created a new belief around that. That letter leaked and started to live its own life on the internet, which eventually led to him writing this book. So without further ado, let's start this book and let's see how far we get. Dear friend, welcome to the wonderful world of religion. These are exciting times in holiness. Politicians are crusading, nations are invading, and science is fading. With these changes come religious opportunities, the likes of which haven't been seen since the Reformation, or at least since the persecuted masses first huddled together and shipped off from Old Blighty to the great democratic revival meeting we call the United States of America. With this in mind, the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster invites you to learn a little more about us. We'd like to tell you all about our heaven, which features a stripper factory and a giant beer volcano. We'd love to see you dressed in his chosen garb, full pirate regalia. We want you to enjoy Fridays as his chosen holiday. But first, you need to know a little more about us. What do we stand for? All that is good. What are we against? All that is not good. Sounds sweet, right? Of course, it's not that simple. And that's why we need a book. Doesn't every religion have a book? The Jews have the Bible, the Old Testament. The Christians have ditto, the New Testament. The Muslims have the Q-tip or whatever. The Jains have fun with Dick and Jane. The Sufis have Sufis up. The Buddhists have the banana pada. The Hindus have the 10 little Indians. The Wiccans have the witches of Eastwick, and so on. If this was a manifesto, a pamphlet, a flyer, an article, or some nut preaching from a street corner, you, fair reader, might perceive Flying Spaghetti Monsterism to be just another 2-bit cult. But we are not a cult. We are more like a boutique religion at this point. And this is a book that will stand up to any of the others, at least in terms of strict plausibility, if not literally finesse and retributive beheadings and disembowelments. The more you read about us, the more you're going to be persuaded that the Flying Spaghetti Monster is the true creator, and that FSMism just might be the best religion ever. Go ahead, try us for 30 days. If you don't like us, your old religion will most likely take you back, unless it's the Jains, whose feelings are easily hurt. Ramen. Bobby Henderson, Prophet. Let's start with the first chapter, The Blunders of Science. Part of education is to expose people to different schools of thought. George W. Bush, closet Pastafarian. The need for alternative theories. Science is a subject in crisis. There is a dirty little secret that the scientific establishment has been trying to keep under wraps for years. There are many unproven theories that are being taught to people as if they were established fact. But thanks to the heroic efforts of a handful of deep thinkers, the winds of truth are sweeping across the nation. Consider the theory of evolution. To their credit, intelligent design advocates have successfully argued that their alternative theory deserves as much attention as evolution, since neither can be considered fact. This is a valid point, but evolution is hardly the one theory in trouble. It seems strange that evolution is singled out as just a theory, when there are so many basic ideas in science that remain unproven, yet are still taught as fact. The objections to teach evolution have only illustrated this point further. Alternative theories must be taught in order to give our young students' minds a broad foundation. The intelligent design proponents make a compelling and totally legitimate argument that if a theory has not been proven, then one suggested theory is just as good as another. Take gravity, for example, the force of attraction between massive particles. We know a great deal about the properties of gravity, yet we know nothing about the cause of the force itself. Why are particles attracted to one another? If we review the literature, we find a lot of material dealing with the properties of gravity, but very little dealing with the underlying cause of this attraction. Until we have a proven answer to this question, it seems irresponsible to instruct students in what is, ultimately, just a theory. However, if we must discuss the theory of gravity at all, then it is reasonable that all suggested theories should be given equal time, since none have been proven or disproven. Therefore, I firmly submit that the flying spaghetti monster is behind this strange and often misunderstood force. What if it is he, pushing us down with his noodly appendages, that causes this force? He is invisible, remember, and is undetectable by current instruments. So in theory it is possible, and the fact that gravitational powers of the spaghetti monster haven't been disproven makes it all more likely that it be true. We can only guess as to his motives, but it is logical to assume that if he is going to such trouble, there is a good reason. It could be that he doesn't want us floating off Earth into space, or maybe just that he enjoys touching us. We may never know. And while it is true that we don't have any empirical evidence to back this theory up, keep in mind the precedent set by the intelligent design proponents. Not only is observable, repeatable evidence not required to get an alternative theory included in the curriculum, but simply poking holes in established theory may be enough. In this case, the established theory of gravity makes no mention as to the cause of the force. It merely presents the properties of it. I fully expect then that this FSM theory of gravity will be admitted into acceptance science with a minimum of apparently unnecessary bureaucratic nonsense, including the peer review process. For further evidence of the true cause of gravity, that we are being pushed down by his noodly appendages, we need only to look at our historical records. The average height of humans who 2000 years ago was about 5 feet 3 inches for males, compared with an average height of around 5 feet 10 inches for males today. Useless by itself, this information becomes quite important when viewed in terms of worldwide population. Humans apparently obsessed with shagging have increased their numbers exponentially over the years. We find, counterintuitively, that a small population correlates with shorter humans, and a larger population correlates with taller humans. This only makes sense in light of the FSM theory of gravity. With more people on Earth today, there are fewer noodly appendages to go around, so we each receive less touching, pushing down toward the Earth, and thus, with less force downward, we are taller. We can fully accept that as the population increases and we receive less downward pushing by the FSM. will continue to grow in height. Conversely, we can expect that the sudden occurrence of a worldwide plague would cause our average height to decrease. This phenomenon can be verified in historical records. We find that regions under health crisis have shorter people. Strong evidence that the theory is sound. No one is saying that the FSM theory of gravity is necessarily true, but at the very least it's based on sound science. Sound enough to be included in the curriculum with the other non-proven theories. Until the currently taught theory of gravity, known as Newtonism, is proven as fact, alternatives should be taught as well. An American viewpoint. A note from Ferris P. Longshanks, County Sheriff, Coles Governor, and concerned citizen. Honestly, fellow citizens, I don't understand what all the fuss is about. We are not saying that intelligent design is any more valid than evolution or any other half-baked theory of creation. All we are interested in is giving people choices. Isn't that what America is all about? Republican or Democrat, McDonald's or Burger King, Coke or Pepsi. And here's another one to consider. The benevolent Lord our Savior, or everlasting damnation in hellfire. Whichever side you fall on doesn't really matter, because we are all Americans. Still, any real American supports his or her inalienable right to have choices, and lots of them. For what are people without choices? Communists. And despite this fact, there are those who would bar the public from having an open and honest discussion about intelligent design. A scientific concept that is so clear and logical as to appeal to a Baptist holy man and intellectual discerning formula one fans liked. Sometimes I see the hypocrisy and just shake my head. Granted, these are controversial issues we're dealing with, and well-reasoned people do disagree on whether life as we know it was created by a benevolent and all-knowing creator. Or though a random and heartless struggle for dominance, commonly known as survival of the fittest. For the sake of clarity, allow me to use a simple analogy to explain these two different versions of creation. Say you want to buy one of those new flat-screen TVs and that are so popular these days. According to the opposing theories of ID and evolution, you might acquire that TV in two very different ways. You could assume, quite fairly, that intelligent designers from Sony, Toshiba and Sharp are actively producing new and affordable 42-inch high-definition flat-screen TVs, which are then boxed and shipped to the nearest Walmart or Circuit City for you to purchase. Or you could wait several million years for a new flat-screen TV to evolve spontaneously from a soup composed of mud, DNA and spare television parts. Once this happens, you might attempt to drag your new television out of a swamp and back to your house, or more likely cave, before a stranger comes swinging out of a tree, kills you and your children, then inseminates your wife with his own seed. As you can see, both theories present potential dramatic consequences for society. I'm not saying that one scenario is more valid than the other, but I will say that the intelligent design option is the first one. In the interest of fairness, I'll also say that evolution, or natural selection, is the one where your wife gets raped by a man who lives in a tree. Both theories present unique challenges. When considering the two, ask yourself which makes more sense in life. Then ask yourself, who's making these arguments anyway? Intelligent design proponents can boast of several scientists, brave men who are willing to be called upon by name to represent their views. You've seen these pro-ID champions on your television, which we can safely assume were designed by engineers and bought from a store. Further proof. You've observed them being viciously attacked by activists, judges, the liberal media and a certain Bobby Henderson. But where are the men of science who speak out in support of evolution? A number of scientists have been cited in defense of evolution, But if we examine the situation more closely, we begin to see a disturbing pattern. Names like Darwin, Einstein, Carl Sagan, Stephen Jay Gould, Ernst Mayr, and many other scientists who 95% of the country have never heard of, are offered up as men who've supported evolution. Yet you never seen one of these so-called scientists publicly defending their theory. Why? Answer: because they're all dead. Coincidence? When the pro-evolutionary movement has to resort to dead scientists, who are probably a little warm right now if you get my drift, it makes one wonder how good an argument they actually have. What is next? Bring back Aristotle, a homosexual and Ptolemy forgotten, to argue for a flat earth? Given the pro-evolutionists' track record, that can't be too far away. As I've stated, we do see living judges trying to wield their laws in the face of this highly scientific discussion. However, I predict that the well-prepared ID scientists will soon have liberal activist judges, quaking in their penny loafers. These judges are much better suited for sanctioning same-sex marriage, and most of them are old and easily confused. Ignore their words and proclamations, for they tire easily. The liberal media has also chimed in on the subject, only to be reminded they are just over-promoted weathermen with good hair, deep voices and small penises. I don't have conclusive evidence on this last point, but looking at the news anchorman, I'm pretty sure it's true. Don't worry about the media, they lose interest as soon as forest fire season returns. Aside from that, scientists, activists, judges and the liberal media, one other man has arisen as a voice for the evolutionists, if not necessarily to argue for evolution, then at least to mock the ID movement. We know little about this man, who hails from Pacific Northwest and calls himself Bobby Henderson. For be it from me to cast stone, but there are disturbing rumors about him going around. I read on the internet that he's not even a scientist. Also, a very reliable source reports that he lied about his military record. I hear that he's been divorced 3 times and sleeps in a crypt. Not all of these rumors are verified, but if we are to let this lying divorcee, who may or may not be a shape-shifting night creature, take a lead on this important debate, I can only pray for the redemption of this country. In conclusion, I would like to return to my original argument. We, the people, need choices. We need as many choices as possible, and we can't allow the leftist cabal of scientists, judges, Bobby Henderson and the media to take these choices away from us. Write to your congressman and demand that ID be taught in schools. Write to your religious leaders and demand that they write to your congressman. If we don't act now, I fear that will come when judges and the media are free to operate with little regard for the tempting hand of public outrage. Laws will be passed and upheld, and only judges will be able to rule on them. The media will report the news without threat of legal action. To put it bluntly, the God-hating communists will have finally won. I wonder if they all appoint Bobby Henderson to be the dictator. Now, let's leave it with this first chapter for now. If you liked it, please subscribe. My apologies if I made some mistakes in pronunciation and didn't flow correctly. This was my first chapter and first time reading out loud on camera. But I promise you it will improve as we progress in the book. Please subscribe, like and share this video. I will make another one with the next chapter and so on and so on. Thank you very much for watching.